Hello everyone, DevM here. Today I thought about doing something I never did, which is a video about Company of Heroes. I guess that the cast that I did with AE kinda made me want to do this. Um, so today I have here a replay of me playing as USF against Ashabla playing as OKW, and I especially chose this game because I know that a lot of people as USF struggle against OKW. Um, I also don't know how many videos I'm going to do or if this is going to be the only one, but I felt like doing this, so I think it would be fun. Starting off, the main difference that I find with OKW versus Austere is that against Austere, you usually win the main engagements with Riflemen against Grenadiers, and the only thing you need to worry about is where the MG is positioned at. Where against OKW, they are in a way kind of the USF of Axis. They can be very aggressive, so you need to be really smart on how you approach the early game. I would say that against OKW, our main objective is to have a good combined arms approach, because they really struggle to deal with a lot of the MG play and a lot of the combined arms approach that you can do with USF against them. So I'm going to try to explain to the best of my ability what I did in the early kind of to mid game of this game. I'm only going to do the first 10 minutes because after that I feel like the game is already over. Let's get this started. Going to remove the fog of war as well. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is how usually the OKW players do one of two things. They either send the Stern Pioneer alone to one side of the map to cap it, or they send the Stern Pioneer and the Volk squad to one side of the map, and the third Volk squad to the other one. Or they send everything to one side. So that's pretty straightforward, right? But usually you will see either Stern Pioneer to one side, or Stern Pioneer and a Volk squad to one side, and then the third one to the other. So Ashabla here, keep in mind that this is a top player playing as OKW, so if you are a mid-range level player, a lot of this will apply. I'm just going to pause right now. So Ashabla sent the Stern Pioneer to the left and the Volk squad to the right. So right now we have kind of a split of units that we can take advantage of. So going forward, I sent the rear echelon to the right side of the map, and I send 2 riflemen to the left. And I'm going to put Fog of War on here right now. I see a unit capping here, and I want to know if it's the Stern Pioneer. So I approach with the rifleman. As soon as I see that it's a Stern Pioneer, I keep my rifleman at a distance to fire at it, which is a thing that everyone should do against the Stern Pioneer. And the second rifleman right now is not going to support just yet the rifleman, because keep in mind that as USF your main objective is also to get that Stuart out as fast as possible, so you can't really deny fuel for yourself in the early game. So I'm keeping the Stern Pioneer busy and kinda keeping track on where he is, while the second rifleman caps the manpower point so I can get some fuel. And right now I'm also not going all in because I don't know where the Volk squad is. But right now my rear echelon spots that the fuel is being captured, which means I know that at least one Volk squad went to the right. So that's kind of my go-to button right now, because I know that this Stern Pioneer isn't fully supported. So second rifleman comes in to support the first one. I try to get the Stern Pioneer out of the field. And this is really important, because early game, if you can get a unit out of the field for the enemy, then you can basically win the rest of the engagements until that unit is back on the field, because you're going to have numbers advantage. So right now I push off the Stern Pioneer. He tries to get to green cover. And I'm going to try to get this wind cover position, because it's really hard for the north spawn here, in this case, to dislodge a unit on this wall here. And also I'm going to keep the pressure on the Stern Pioneer. And if you notice, I never approach close range the Stern Pioneer. It's really important that you keep your units at medium to long range at least against the Stern Pioneer. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that I know that he has a Volk squad on this side of the map. I saw that earlier. So I now use the rear echelon that is not going to do anything against a Volk squad to go over to the left side and help out the 2 riflemen to win against the Stern Pioneer and the Volk squad. Again, I want numbers advantage on the field, so I kinda see where he has his units at, and I try to ambush the units that he has mispositioned. My 3rd rifle is also coming to the center of the map to kinda stop the Volk that is in the right to go to the left if he does try that. So here I get the Volk squad back to the base, and the Stern Pioneer is also going back to the base. And this is really the early game that you want. This is like perfect. And notice that as soon as I have those back to his base, the rear echelon riflemen that were supporting that engagement right away go to the right to decap this. Because OKW usually suffers a lot if they don't have the right fuel for the Puma or the Panzer II on time. So it's really important that you take each advantage that you win in the field to deny that fuel for OKW. And right now I'm decapping that point so he doesn't get this fuel. And I'm also making sure that the unit count is 2-1. And this is only possible because of that early game again. I got a numbers advantage, so now I can engage this Volk freely. And basically, I just accomplished the main 2 things in this early game, which is to deny fuel and to get the numbers advantage on the field. Now, the main plan, obviously, you want to go Lieutenant, which I'm already doing. And then you want to go for the Steward. In a perfect scenario. Also, I don't keep this rifleman longer in the field capping, because I want that rifleman up to the 5 man when the OKW player returns to the field. Right now he's doing a push here, I don't want to lose manpower, so I retreat that rifleman without any losses. And Asha is trying to get me off here, so I just need to make sure that I bring 1 more unit over here, which is going to be the Lieutenant. And this rear echelon right here is playing around on the center of the field, so I can get an idea where his units are at. It's really important that, for example, as Austere, even as USF, you have 1 unit around the center of the field, so you know what your opponent is doing. So I have an idea that he has a Stern Pioneer and a Volk on the right, and I know that he has at least 1 Volk on the left. And I use the building to give me more vision as well. It's also really annoying sometimes to dislodge these units right here. You can be really annoying with buildings. Keep in mind that this Stern Pioneer up until now has been pretty useless, because I have been keeping the Stern Pioneer at a long range at every engagement. So right now I know that the Stern Pioneer, if he moves from here, is going to lose the engagement, because I'm going to have 2 riflemen that can shoot through the Stern Pioneer at long range. So what I'm going to do is I keep the rear echelon in the building, so I can keep my eyes out on the Stern Pioneer, and I'm going to engage the Volks. Again, you want to try to have numbers advantage at every little engagement, so if you can get this Volk squad fighting a Lieutenant and a Rifleman, or even a 3rd Rifleman, then obviously you're going to win that. I also have an engagement here up north. And I also did the 50 cal, because I didn't have the fuel for the Steward straight away. And again, Rifleman at a distance, firing at the Stern Pioneers, nothing he can do here, and Stern Pioneers bleed the OKW player a lot. again, I put the Storm Pioneer back to base. I have numbers advantage. I'm going to push to his fuel again.
God damn it! Someone get us out of here!
Air supply of field ordnance is available.
See how much the OKW player is bleeding at the moment?
Bust out the metal, boys!
Because of the engagements that I did early game, I have been able to even get a 50 call and be floating 400 manpower by the time that I build the Steward, which is really good. This is like a perfect early game against OKW. Lieutenant upgrades Zooks so he can support the incoming Steward against possible Puma. I'm going to say that this bazooka upgrade was maybe a bit too early, but in this case it won't matter.
The enemy is overrunning one of our capture points.
Also keep in mind that around this time of the game, if you don't have the ambulance out, your riflemen are going to start bleeding you a lot. So by this time of the game, I'm thinking that I want to wait for the Steward before doing any other major engagements, because OKW has access to the free healing. Well, not free, but they don't need a building for that. They have the Storm Pioneer. So his squads are up to full health, while my squads are not, which means I'll bleed more manpower than he will. So what I'm trying to do here is do early retreats with 3 men, 4 men, so I don't lose a lot of models, and wait my time for the ambulance and use the MG as a kind of unit to hold the front line as of now, while I wait for the Steward. You also want the Steward first before the ambulance, because he probably won't have a counter out. Well, if you did the ambulance first, you would have probably the Puma on time for the Steward. So yeah, trying to dodge him a bit right now. I'm trying to use the MG as my main frontline unit for the low health rifleman. And now the Steward is out, and because of that early game aggression, you can see that he's lacking fuel for the Puma straight away, so this Steward is going to have maybe, I would say, 30 to 40 seconds of good presence on the map. And I bring it to the left so I protect my fuel, which is still going to get, but not for long. Now ambulance is also out, which is really good. Keep in mind that I know from my early game that I did pretty well on fuel wise, so that's why I brought the Steward alone against this Volk squad on the left. But you usually never want to leave the Steward alone against an OKW player. I'll always have it with at least with a rifleman that can snare a potential Puma. So yeah, you see me now bringing the Stewards closer to my own lieutenant, because the lieutenant has the bazooka. And you always want to team up the Steward with either the lieutenant with the bazooka, or rear echelon with Zooks, or at least a rifleman, a vet one. So just because of this scenario where the Puma can really bring down your Steward really fast, so you need the support of some kind of an AT weapon.
57mm AT gun now deployable by air.
I also start bringing my riflemen slowly back to base so they can heal. And I use the main building for vision and to see where the Puma is. Now, at this point into the match, I'm already very comfortable. I have both fuels. I have MG out, I have the Steward out, I have healing out. So right now it's more of a question of locking down the map which is why Airborne I think is really good.
Our
You can
supply
drop
line is
the
cut.
50 cal
Germans are
for
making a
about
push.
125 manpower and 50 munitions, and you can get a weapon with the rear echelon, which overall is going to get you a very cheap 50 cal. And this is really good because you don't need to put the upfront investment of 280 manpower for a 50 cal. You can have the 50 cal much
Losing a
sooner in the
capture point.
film.
Someone get a fountain here.
But I would advise, again, because this is OKW, you know you're up against mechanized most likely, it's really important that you have an AT gun out. The AT gun out makes it so that the steward can harass his infantry basically uncontested unless he gets a Raketen, which is really hard for the OKW player to do all the time if he has so many infantry units, and especially if he does the MG, which he needs against the rifleman at some point. So again, Stuart is going to harass the infantry. It's going to be supported by an AT gun and rifleman. I still have the lieutenant looking out for his units in the center. And right now the AT gun is trying to zone out the Puma. Now here he does a mistake of rushing in the Puma to try to get my Steward. He gets kind of desperate. And obviously he loses the Puma to that. And because of that second MG I just dropped in, he can't even push this side of the map.
The capture point is under attack.
And again, this engagement basically lost him the game. So I'm going to take Fog of War off right here. And we can see that he just lost a major engagement here. I'm going to recrew my Tegan. I'm going to cap his side of the map. And without the Puma out, he isn't going to have a good counter for my Steward. And if he does want to have a good counter, he'll have to build another Puma. And that Puma will already be countered by an AT gun and a Zook from the Lieutenant. And after I do the weapons upgrades for the Rifleman, then his Volkswagen will also be no match for them for a long while. So this game right now, it's already basically over. Even if it doesn't seem like it, maybe. So, important things to keep in mind against OKW is, first of all, the early game is really, really important. Because if you have a bad early game, it's not that it's impossible to come back. It's not, because Combined Arms is really strong against OKW. It's just that it puts you in a much better position coming into the mid game against the mechanized approach, and against Flak Track it's kind of the same thing. So early game you want to look out for where his units are at. You want to keep track of his Stern Pioneer especially, and you want to try and outnumber the OKW player in some part of the map. If he does have all units on one side of the map, then you want to kind of mirror his approach and cap the other side of the map, because it's okay for you to go even against OKW. If you go more than even, which is what happened this game, it's really good. But if you see that he has all units on one side of the map, then you can kind of mirror and cap the other side of the map and wait for him to push in and focus his Stern Pioneer. So that's the first thing. Keep in mind where his units are at, try to ambush him. If you send the rear echelon to one side of the map like I did, which I sent to the right side of the map, and he does send a Volk squad there, then you should get the rear echelon to the other side of the map to support the Rifleman. If he didn't send a Volk there, that means he probably sent all the units to the other side of the map. Then you can basically capture the map for free on that side and keep the Rifleman in green cover somewhere to stop his advance on the center of the map, for example. So that's the first important thing against OKW, is that it's not really that easy of an early game as it is against Austria, in my opinion. You need to be smarter about where you position your Rifleman. Second is that OKW struggles against the good combined arms approach. That means 50 cals with Rifleman with BARs, Steward, rear echelon with Zooks, AT guns, everything that everything combined is really hard for OKW to break, especially the 50 cals. So even if you had a bad early game, if you can get these units out, then you're going to basically push off the OKW player off the map at some point at least. Which is a good thing, honestly. If USF is known for not having the best late game, but I think against OKW they actually have a pretty good late game just because of that. The third thing that I want to mention is obviously the steward. The steward is really important when it hits the field to keep the Volks and the Sternpio in check, basically. And the only thing that is going to counter the steward in these OKW builds that you usually see is the Puma. So if you can keep the Zook or a Rifleman or a rear echelon with Zooks around the steward, then the steward can do its job much better and he can't rush your steward, which is something that OKW players often do. The fourth is obviously trying to rush those 50 calls. They are basically what's going to be the backbone of your army against OKW. You can kind of play aggressive with them, have the Rifleman scout for them and push in with the 50 calls. And basically the last one that I want to mention is obviously, this is more akin to every faction than only USF, but it's really important that you take notice of it anyways, which is the manpower losses at around the steward timing. So you're not going to have the ambulance out before the steward. The ambulance is going to be pretty late-ish. You can expect your rifleman to already be low and bleeding a lot of manpower. So you kind of want to, on that timing, before the ambulance is in the field and before the steward is in the field, it's probably where you are the weakest at, because you're still waiting for the steward, you don't have healing. So I would advise to maybe kind of try to play around the OKW player, not do any engagements, try to decap a point or two somewhere. If you have the 50 cal, then it's the only part of the map where you can expect to at least win. But try to minimize the losses there, because you're going to be bleeding a lot of manpower if you don't retreat your riflemen early into the engagements, or at least have them behind green cover to kind of stall the opponent until you have the steward and the ambulance out. So yeah, I think those are the main points. I would advise also to go airborne for any player out there that's struggling against OKW as USF, because it's going to give you the AT gun, which you would technically need to tech for the captain to get it. And it's really good against OKW in general, even against the flak half track, but especially against the Puma, which often outranges your steward. And you also have the 50 cal drop, which is really good because you can get more 50 cals into the field much faster. And finally, actually, before that you have the paratrooper as well, which I didn't use here, but it's actually a good unit. I would advise just to get one of them and upgrade them with the anti-infantry upgrade. But yeah, finally you do have the P-47 rocket strafe, which late game is really good to stop any OKW rushes or even do your own rushes. So yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed this video. I'm not sure if I'm going to do more, I just felt like doing this one. There are many concepts that I can go over in the future if I do make more videos. Again, I'm probably, if I do more, I'm not going to do the Brits faction because it's probably the one I'm less comfortable with. I know how to play against them, but I never play them much myself. So yeah, tell me what you think in the comments at least, if you have any suggestions, since it's my first video. And I hope you guys have a great Christmas.